The film begins with Agent George and his partner getting ready to apprehend a man working in a store with their tactical team. After setting up everything, the agents wait, bidding their time, and Joseph is lost in thought while clearing up the shop, and he's startled by a coworker, Franny, saying goodbye as she was leaving for the night. The two agents enter the shop, and even though he tells them that the store is closed, they explain that they were there to see him. Confused, Joseph asks if he knows them, and the man points at the name tag that he was wearing. Joseph then gets even more confused, but then George tells him that he knows that Joseph wasn't his real name. George goes on to mention Joseph's code name, which makes Joseph apprehensive, telling the man that he would never go back to the place that they were trying to return him to. Joseph's eyes then start to glow and he makes a defensive stance. Before an altercation can begin, Franny returns because she forgot her keys, and using the distraction, Joseph runs out of the shop but is pursued by George and his men. Joseph tries to escape, but he's trapped between 4 of the agents, and knowing that he has no option, he breaks through the roof and away from his assailants. On the roof, Joseph tries to find a way to safety to get away, but stops dead in his tracks when he realizes that there were snipers aiming at him. The 4 agents had enough time to catch up to him, and using their special batons, they start attacking Joseph, but he manages to hold Scott hostage with a knife to his neck, making the other agents move back. Although Joseph manages to keep them at bay, George uses their drone to distract him long enough for them to subdue him and take him captive. They then transport him to a secret facility where he's kept under heavy lock and key. George is congratulated by his commanding officer Williams, who tells him that he did a fine job. George then asks the captain why the captive's file said he took somebody hostage as they're programmed to be killers, and if they're programmed that way, it didn't really fit his MO. Williams explains that the subject would do anything to survive, and he then orders George to assemble a team for a debrief and leaves. At the meeting, Williams explains to the team that they were fighting a secret war. The assembled unit was the last line of defense against the enhanced mutants. He explains that throughout the weeks, they have found many subjects dead and assume that they're being hunted down by one of their own. Their mission is to contain any enhanced subjects and to protect the public. We then see Anna working on a car in a garage where she's employed. Her boss has been trying to fix a car that came in the day before, but it seemed like one of the bolts was jammed. And we see Anna using her superhuman strength to open it. While she was about to return to fixing the car that she was working on, she notices a black car pull up in the shop. 3 men then get out of the car and head straight to the shop, and seeing Marco and his men, Danny tells Anna to go wash up, assuring her that he'd be able to handle the men. And after the men leave, Anna gets her bicycle and heads out. The next morning, Anna and Danny receive another visit from Marco and his men, and Marco had brought the passport Danny had paid to have made for Anna so she could get out of the country. But Marco goes back on their deal and asks for $10,000 or to hand it over. He starts beating up Danny, which makes Anna reveal her superpowers by taking on all the men on her own. During the struggle, Danny is accidentally shot and is in need of medical attention, and Anna hurries and calls an ambulance while trying to stop the bleeding. Realizing that her cover was compromised, Anna picks up the passport and hurries out. Back at the facility, George receives intel that there had been a sighting of an enhanced subject, and he and Scott follow up on the information and find Anna hurrying to her van where she lives. She hurries to get a change of clothes, but she stops when she sees a red car approaching her. A man gets out of the car and tells her that they need to talk, and he tells her that he can help keep her safe, but she doesn't trust the stranger and makes it obvious that she doesn't need his help. Threatened, the man gets back into his car and drives away. After driving for a few hours, Anna realizes that she's being followed by the agents and tries to avoid them. George uses their drone to track her down and break down the car, and while trying to fix it, Anna is approached by a menacing-looking young man called David, who tells her that she has something that belongs to him. Before she could ask what he meant, the place is swarmed by George and his agents, who call out for her to come out. Knowing that there is no way of escaping, Anna comes out of her car and gives herself up. She begs George to let her go and tells him that she didn't kill Danny, but the agents start attacking her with their electric batons, pushing her to the full level of her power, and she emits an energy surge that takes them down. While they were down, Anna escapes and finds a nearby barn to hide in. George follows her there, but she surprises him with an attack, and the two rebuff each other's advances until George manages to subdue Anna right before he's attacked by David and falls unconscious. In the car, sitting next to an unconscious George, Anna asks David if it was him that freed their kind from the facility, and when she realizes that it was him, she thanks him for what he did. David then takes them to his house and ties up George and interrogates him about where they're keeping their subjects, but he doesn't get any intel from George. In the morning, Anna offers the captive some water and tells him that they weren't who he thought they were, and all the bad stuff that they did were orders that came from the government. George explains that one of her own has been hunting down the Enhanced and tells her that she should be able to protect her. Skeptical, Anna tells him that people in the facility has executed her doctor because she treated her well and gave her a name. George tells her that they'd seen her file, and it said that she murdered her doctor herself, but Anna denies it. She explains that he had been lied to by the people who had taken her away from her family when she was only 4. She tells him that they were forced to kill or otherwise be punished, and in the middle of their conversation, David walks in and asks George to reveal the location of the subject's whereabouts. George is still unwilling to give up the information, and he answers the questions sarcastically. Outside the cabin, Scott and the other agents slowly make it to the house, but are seen by David's monitors. Before they can make their first move, David surprises them with an attack, and after trying to take on 5 men on his own, David is finally held down and drugged, making him easier to kidnap. But before they saw it coming, David hits them with an energy blast and then immediately regains his footing. In the cabin, Anna looks out the window and sees Joseph dressed as one of the agents coming toward them, and barging through the door, he goes right for Anna, who hadn't been expecting the assault. She tries to defend herself, but Joseph was stronger and better trained, which made Anna no match for him. While the fighting continues, George manages to untie himself and tries to help Anna, and while George was distracted by the agent, Anna manages to tase him with a baton, rendering him unconscious. Believing that it was the best time for her escape, she runs outside followed by George, and she runs into the man that she met earlier in the red car, who tells her to get in. Having no other choice, Anna and George jump into the car and drive away. After being sure that they were clear of danger, the man introduces himself as Eli. He tells them that they need to protect themselves from David because he was the one killing the subjects. Confused, Anna asks him why he would kill his own kind, and Eli tells her that it was because he was the original of their kind. Eli then takes the two to a storage unit where he lives with his enhanced friend Lou, and after a brief introduction, Eli tells them that he used to work for the organization as an analyst. He tells them that all of his research was lost when David burned down the original facility, but he was saved by Lou. He explains that researchers in the organization had managed to find and trap pure energy inside David, giving him his powers. All of the other subjects had their DNA infused with David's, which gave them the same power that David has. And David needs to regain all of his power from the others so he can go back home to where he came from. Eli goes on to explain that although David can be hurt, he regenerates instantly, which makes him almost impossible to kill. Now that he realized what he was up against, George tells Anna and the others that they should stay as far away from David as they can, while he and his team handle it. As he gets ready to head out, Eli is suddenly attacked by a sudden force generated by David himself. He then charges toward Anna, but is stopped by Lou, who yells at them to run away. George and Anna escape through the hole in the wall, while Lou tries to hold off David for as long as he can. After beating him, David absorbs all of Lou's energy and takes back his power. David catches up to Anna and George and drags her out of the car and flings her to the ground. He then tries to absorb Anna's power, but is interrupted by a crowbar thrown by George. George negotiates to give David all the information on the other subjects as long as he lets Anna live. And David agrees with the bargain, and the two head toward the facility, and in the car, George distracts David with the car's airbag and pushes him outside and drives to the facility on his own to warn the others. At the facility, a strike team assembles to take down Subject 1, and at the gates, George is stopped by the guards and is informed that he had been removed from activity. And after being detained, he's taken to speak to Captain Williams. Williams accuses him of breaking protocol and aiding one of the subjects, but George angrily responds that he was attacked by one of the subjects that he had sent after them. The captain was disappointed that one of his best soldiers was now sympathizing with what he considered to be just weapons. As soon as George mentions that the Alpha was coming for the subjects and would kill anyone who was standing in his way, the facility alarms start going off, and the camera footage showed David attacking the guards. George asks Williams to let him handle Subject 1, but Williams pushes him in one of the cells and deploys the other subjects to take down David. Anna reaches the facility and finds the carnage David had left, and William and his men watch the footage of David breaking through their defenses and taking out the people sent to kill him. Before he completely disintegrates him, David tells Williams that he hates the decaying body that they trapped him in and that he cannot wait to leave their planet. Anna makes it to the holding cell just in time to save George, and she attacks David, but he has grown too powerful and she was no match for him. Scott helps George out of the cell and they try to fight him together, but David kills Scott because he was annoyed by the constant gunfire. Desperate, George activates his failsafe, releasing a gas that weakens David by temporarily halting his powers. Anna then uses this chance to take David down and then picks up the gun to shoot him. David begs for his life, saying that everything that he wanted to do was just go home, and although Anna hesitates, George takes the gun from her and shoots Subject 1 in the head. Anna carries George out of the facility and they sit together, discussing how they're gonna move forward with their lives. 4 months later, Anna is called to help tow a broken down car after starting work as a mechanic. In the car, sitting with a cap on, was George, and he's tracked down Anna and finally made contact. And the movie ends as we see a man hearing his doorbell ring, and he opens it and finds David standing there, who tells him that he has something that he needs, and we can see his bright blue eyes glowing.